I never believed in second chances. Not at 56, not after 30 years of living a lie, not after building an entire life with the wrong person. But when I walked into the Seattle Opera House on a rainy October evening and saw her sitting 3 seats away during La Traviata, the woman I'd loved and lost 3 decades ago, I realized something profound. It's never too late to reclaim your truth. This is the story of how I found my way back to Elena, back to myself, and back to a love I thought I'd buried forever. The moment the lights dimmed and Violetta began to sing, my hands started trembling. I'd bought the ticket on impulse, a Friday evening alone. Nothing else to do, and La Traviata had always been my favorite opera. I'd settled into my orchestra seat, program in hand, ready to lose myself in Verdi's tragic love story. But when the woman 3 seats down turned her head slightly during the prelude, profile illuminated by the stage lights, my entire world stopped. Elena. Even after 30 years. I would recognize that elegant profile anywhere, the slight upturn of her nose, the way she held her head when listening to music, completely absorbed. My heart pounded so violently I was certain the people around me could hear it over the orchestra. I tried to focus on the performance, but it was impossible. Every note, every aria about impossible love and sacrifice felt like the universe was mocking me. When Violetta sang Sempre Libera about freedom and living for pleasure, I felt tears streaming down my face, not for the character, but for the 26-year-old version of myself who'd been too afraid to choose freedom, too terrified to choose Elena. At intermission, I remained frozen in my seat while others filed out. I watched Elena stand, elegant in a black dress I didn't recognize, her dark hair now threaded with silver pulled into a sophisticated twist. She moved toward the aisle, and I knew this was my moment. Speak now, or let her disappear again for another 30 years. Elena. My voice came out hoarse, barely audible over the crowd noise. She stopped, turned. Those deep brown eyes found mine, and I watched recognition dawn across her face like sunrise. Margaret? She whispered my name like a prayer, like a curse, like something she'd been afraid to say out loud for decades. I stood, my legs shaking. I didn't know you still came to the opera. Every Friday when I can. Her voice trembled slightly. Alone, usually. It's my ritual. Mine too, I admitted. Since the divorce. Something shifted in her expression, pain, hope, understanding all flickering across her features. I heard about you and Robert. I'm sorry, don't be. I managed a sad smile. It was 30 years overdue. 30 years of living a lie while the woman I actually loved was somewhere in this city, probably sitting alone at the opera, just like me. Elena's eyes widened, filling with tears that reflected the ornate chandelier above us. The crowd pressed around us, people returning from the bar, but we stood frozen in our own private universe. The second act is about to start, she said softly. But after, would you like to get a drink? There's a wine bar next door. We could talk. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We returned to our seats, those agonizing 3 seats apart, and endured the second and third acts. But I barely heard the music. All I could think about was the woman 3 seats away, the life I'd thrown away, and the impossible possibility that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. When Violetta died in Alfredo's arms, singing her final notes, Elena turned and looked directly at me. In the darkness, with tears on both our faces, something unspoken passed between us: recognition, forgiveness, hope. The curtain fell. The applause thundered around us, and when Elena stood and extended her hand toward me, I took it without hesitation. The wine bar was intimate and dimly lit, all exposed brick and velvet banquettes. We found a quiet corner, ordered a bottle of Chianti, and sat across from each other with 3 decades of silence between us. Elena poured the wine with steady hands, though I noticed her fingers trembled slightly when she handed me my glass. I never married, she said without preamble, as if we were continuing a conversation we'd started 30 years ago. There were relationships. Some lasted years, but nothing ever ... double quotes. Nothing ever felt right. I finished, the words escaping before I could stop them. Nothing ever felt like you? She took a long sip of wine, her eyes never leaving mine. Is that pathetic? Spending 30 years measuring everyone against a woman who chose someone else? Who walked away? The pain in her voice was a physical thing, sharp and cutting. Elena, I didn't walk away because I stopped loving you. I walked away because I was terrified. Of what? Of me? Of us? Of myself. I set down my wine glass, afraid I'd drop it. Of what choosing you would mean. It was 1994. My parents had just met you, and I saw the questions in my mother's eyes. The way she watched us together, the disapproval when we were too comfortable, too close. And when Robert proposed, they were ecstatic. He was everything they dreamed of for me, successful, appropriate, safe, and I was none of those things. You were everything I wanted and nothing I had the courage to fight for. My voice broke. I convinced myself it was a phase, that what we felt was just intense friendship I was misinterpreting. I told myself if I married Robert, had children, built a normal life, these feelings would fade. That I could will myself into being the daughter my parents wanted, the wife Robert deserved. Elena's hand moved across the small table, hovering near mine. Did it work? Did the feelings fade? Not for a single goddamn day. The confession tore out of me. I love my children fiercely. Sarah and Michael are the best things I ever did. I built a successful architecture career. I maintained a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. But every opera, every sunset, every beautiful moment I thought of you. Compared everything to you. Measured my hollow contentment against the brief, burning joy I'd known with you. Why didn't you leave sooner? Because I kept thinking it would get easier. That eventually I'd forget how it felt to love you. That time would dull the ache. I laughed bitterly. But time doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes it just teaches you to live with them. Elena's hand finally closed over mine, warm and solid and real. I have something to show you. My home, it's not far. Will you come? There's something you need to see. I nodded, squeezing her hand. Whatever came next, whatever she needed to show me, I was ready. Elena's home was a beautifully restored craftsman in Capitol Hill, warm and artistic and utterly her. But she didn't give me a tour. Instead, she led me directly upstairs to a closed door at the end of the hall. No one's been in here except me, she said, pulling a key from around her neck. Not my daughter, not my friends. This room is my truth. She opened the door, and I stepped into a space that took my breath away. The entire room was dedicated to opera, but specifically to La Traviata. Posters from productions around the world covered the walls. Programs from performances dating back 30 years were carefully framed and displayed. Shelves held different recordings, books about Verdi, sheet music covered with annotations in Elena's handwriting. But what made me sink to my knees was the wall of photographs, dozens of them, all from different opera houses, all of Elena alone in her seat, all taken at La Traviata performances. Each photo was labeled with the date and location. October 15th, 1994. I read the first date aloud, my voice breaking. That was the night we saw it together. Our last night before you told me about Robert's proposal. Elena knelt beside me, her voice thick with emotion. I've seen La Traviata 147 times since then. Once a year minimum, sometimes more. Every time hoping the story would end differently. Every time hoping Violetta would choose love over propriety. Every time hoping you'd walk back into my life. Tears streamed down my face. Elena, this is obsessive. Unhealthy, I know. She smiled sadly. My therapist suggested I was stuck, but I couldn't let go. That opera, that night with you, it was the last time I felt completely alive. So, I kept going back, kept living that moment over and over, kept hoping. I turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in mine. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you having waited, having hoped, having held on to something I destroyed. You didn't destroy it. Elena's thumb stroked across my knuckles. You postponed it. You lived the life you needed to live, became the woman you needed to become. And maybe I needed this time too, to build my career, raise my daughter alone, become strong enough to love you without losing myself. And now, I whispered, now we're here. Both of us free, both of us knowing exactly what we lost, both of us old enough to choose differently. She leaned closer, her breath warm against my face. Now we get to rewrite the ending. No more tragedy, no more sacrifice. Just two women brave enough to choose love. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good, Elena smiled. So am I, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. I closed the distance between us, my hands framing her face, feeling the silver in her hair, the soft skin I dreamed about for 30 years. I love you, I said clearly, firmly. I always have. And I'm done running. When our lips met, it was like the final note of an opera resolution after years of tension, harmony after discord, coming home after decades of wandering. Around us, the walls covered with opera memorabilia seemed to exhale, as if this room had been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. We moved slowly at first, both conscious of the weight of 30 years and the fragility of second chances. I kept my downtown apartment initially. Elena kept her craftsman house. We dated like we were young again, but with the wisdom and scars of women who'd lived full, complicated lives. 3 months in, I introduced Elena to my children. I'd been terrified of their reactions, but I'd raised them to value authenticity. Sarah cried and hugged me, telling me she'd always sensed something missing in my marriage to her father. Michael simply smiled and said, "Finally, Mom, you look actually happy." Elena's daughter Rosa was more reserved, at first protective of her mother who'd been alone so long, but she warmed quickly when she saw the light in Elena's eyes when she looked at me. We attended the opera together every Friday, sitting side by side now instead of 3 seats apart. La Traviata was still our favorite, but now we could watch it without pain, seeing it as the story that brought us back together rather than the memory that separated us. Spring arrived, and with it, conversations about the future. We were having dinner at Elena's house when she set down her wine glass and looked at me seriously. "Move in with me," she said. "Not because we're rushing, but because I'm 59 years old and I'm done wasting time. I want to wake up next to you. I want to make coffee together in the morning. I want to build a life with you, not just date you." I felt tears prick my eyes. I want that too. More than anything. We spent the summer merging our lives. I sold my apartment and moved into the craftsman house. And we renovated it together, creating a shared home office where my architectural drafts could coexist with her art supplies. Combining our books and music and all the artifacts of our separate lives into something beautifully shared. We planted a garden in the backyard, roses and lavender, herbs and vegetables that we tended together in the early morning light before the city fully woke. It became our ritual, these quiet mornings with coffee and dirt under our fingernails, building something living and beautiful together. One evening in late summer, we sat on the back porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of lavender and amber. Elena turned to me, her hand finding mine naturally, easily. "Do you have regrets?" She asked softly. About the 30 years. I considered the question carefully, wanting to be truthful. I regret the pain I caused you. I regret not having the courage sooner. But I can't regret my children or the journey that taught me who I am. Maybe we needed those years to become the women who could love each other well. I think you're right, Elena said, squeezing my hand. The Elena at 26 was too fragile, too uncertain. The Elena at 59 knows exactly who she is and what she deserves. And what I deserve is you, exactly as you are now, strong, honest, brave. I love you, I said, the words coming easier each time. I always have, even when I couldn't admit it to myself. I know. Elena pulled me close, and I rested my head on her shoulder. And now we have all the time in the world. The sky deepened to purple and gold, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear music drifting from an open window opera, naturally. Two women who'd spent 30 years apart sat together in perfect harmony, grateful for second chances and the kind of love that waits, endures, and ultimately prevails. At 57 and 59. We were finally exactly where we belonged. They say it's never too late to live your truth. I'm living proof of that. At 56, I walked into an opera house and walked out with my second chance, the woman I should have chosen decades ago. Was it scary? Absolutely. Did people judge? Some did. But every morning I wake up beside Elena. Every Friday we spend at the opera together. Every moment of authentic joy. It's all worth it. If you're reading this and you're hiding who you are, waiting for the right time to live honestly, let me tell you something, the right time is now. Whether you're 30 or 60, whether you've been living a life for 3 years or 30, it's never too late to reclaim your story. Your turn. What truth have you been too afraid to embrace? What love have you been denying yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Let's create a community of women who refuse to waste another moment living for anyone but ourselves. Remember, second chances aren't just for opera plots. Sometimes they're for brave women who finally choose themselves.